Arcadian Vanguard presents the Wrestling News in your daily wrestling newscast for Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. Good morning. I'm Mike Sempervive. We begin today with last night's live episode of NXT on USA Network from the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. In the main event, NXT champion Bron Breakker retained the title, defeating former WWE World Champion Jinder Mahal via pinfall after a spear.
Trying to draw, nice counter this time by Breakker. Right, boom, spear! Sudden impact! Breakker retains! Wow.
NXT Tag Team Champions Gallus were also successful in a non-title match, defeating Edris Enofe and Malik Blade. The champions were attacked by the former title holders Pretty Deadly following the match. Also on the show, Ilya Dragunov was victorious in his first televised NXT match in nearly 4 months, pinning Trick Williams.
Dragunov with Torpedo Moscow! Wow. Dragunov with all of it. Welcome back to NXT.
The win came 10 days after Dragunov also beat Williams at an NXT house show in Citrus Springs, Florida, in his official first match back. In other results, Alba Fire pinned Ivy Nile, Tony D'Angelo beat Von Wagner, JC Jane defeated Indy Hartwell via disqualification due to outside interference from Jane's former Toxic Attraction partner, Gigi Dolan, and the Dyad defeated Chase U. Following the defeat, Duke Hudson appeared to walk out on his Chase U teammates. In WWE news, last Saturday night's Elimination Chamber Premium Live event at the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, was the highest grossing and most watched Elimination Chamber in the 13-year history of the event, according to an official company release. Viewership for this year's show, headlined by Roman Reigns against Sami Zayn for the Universal title, increased 54% from last year's previous record-setting Elimination Chamber event. The show reportedly set the all-time live attendance gate for wrestling in Montreal, as well as the largest gate for any Elimination Chamber event. Other milestones announced by WWE included a new Elimination Chamber record for live event merchandise sales and sponsorship revenue, which was quadruple that of last year. As previously reported, last Saturday's Elimination Chamber also drew the largest crowd for wrestling in Montreal since WWE's No Way Out 2003 event, headlined by The Rock and Hulk Hogan. Chelsea Green's absence from last Monday night's live Raw from Ottawa, Ontario, which was written into the storyline, was actually due to green card issues Green has been dealing with, according to a report from Fightful Select. The Canadian Green has been prevented from returning to her native country since last summer while she waits for her green card to be officially issued. According to the report, on Monday night, Green was instead in New York City attending a performance of The Last Match, a pro wrestling rock musical featuring her husband, Matt Cardona. In ratings news, WWE SmackDown Live last Friday night drew an average of 2.383 million viewers to Fox, down 3.5% from the previous week's 2.468 million, according to Showbuzz Daily. In the 18 to 49-year-old demographic, the show did a .58 rating, translating to 756,000 viewers. That rating is down nearly 5% from the previous week's .64 rating, according to WrestleNomics. The episode came in first place on network TV in the key demographic for the evening. AEW Rampage, which aired 3 hours earlier than normal last Friday due to the NBA Rising Stars Challenge airing on TNT during Rampage's usual time slot, drew the smallest audience and lowest key demographic rating in the history of the show, according to Showbuzz Daily. A total of 287,000 viewers tuned into TNT to watch the episode, while the key demographic rating was .07, translating to 87,000 viewers, according to WrestleNomics. The episode, which aired at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, fared significantly worse than the 3 Rampage episodes in 2022, which were similarly preempted to the 7 p.m. time slot and drew in the 410 to 480,000 range. In comparison, the audience for SmackDown last Friday evening was almost 9 times the size of the audience for Rampage earlier the same evening. In National Wrestling Alliance news, the NWA World Women's Tag Team title changed hands twice on yesterday's YouTube broadcast of NWA Power in matches taped at the WEDU studios in Tampa Bay, Florida. Maddie Renkowski and Missa Kate emerged from the tapings as champions, defeating the duo of Ella Envy and Roxy, known as Pretty Empowered 2.0.
Here we go, Missa Kate starting.
Oh my gosh!
Roxy got obliterated.
Back to
Tag.
Maddie. Oh my
face
dear
first
God.
into the turnbuckle. Roxy still in there in the ring. Oh, an open hand slap.
Taste out of her mouth.
Oh my God!
One for
Oh,
you.
the
Personal
kick
right
fillet!
now.
The kick fillet! Here comes Maddie!
There it
Reality
is.
check! Reality check!
Cover on Roxy.
She got her!
Moments earlier in the taping, Envy and Roxy had won the title from the Renegades, the duo that was in possession of the gold since the NWA Nuff Said pay-per-view on February 11th. This was the first time that the NWA Women's Tag Team title changed hands twice in one day in the history of the championship, which dates back to the early 1950s. Also on the show, Mims and Dak Draper beat Blunt Force Trauma by disqualification, Cyan retained the national title against J.R. Kratos in a time-limit draw, and Matt Cardona defeated Odinson. And before we leave you today, we'd like to remind you that however you consume your content, you can find the wrestling news 24 hours a day and 7 days a week across social media. On Twitter, follow us at Wrestling News AV. Our Facebook page is also Wrestling News AV. The Wrestling News can also be found on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube page. And for those who utilize Amazon Echo devices, just tell Alexa to play the Wrestling News podcast. And remember to make sure you add podcast at the end. Once again, for daily updates, breaking news, and more, follow the Wrestling News across social media. And that's the news for today. If anything happens, we will be here to tell you about it. No clickbait, no paywall, just the Wrestling News. The Wrestling News is a division of Arcadian Vanguard, and the Wrestling Newscast is a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network.